What is up, Dallas Stars fans, and welcome back to Clean Sheet of Ice, a Texas hockey podcast, where today we will be talking about that man, Mark Stone, the most hated man in Dallas, the most hated team in Dallas, Vegas Golden Knights. We'll be talking about that game last night, late night in Vegas. But before we get to that, we want to thank Prize Picks, our daily fantasy sponsor for this episode. Use code Apollo when you download the Prize Picks app, and you get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Not a big deal. You put in $100, they'll give you $100 right back with Prize Picks. I'm your host, Stone Strankman, for Clean Sheet of Ice, a Texas hockey podcast presented by Apollo Media, joined always by Dom Garcia. How we doing, bud?
You know what? We've won 3 straight.
Mm-hmm.
I should be happier, but I think the entire hockey world saw what happened last night, and it'll leave a sour taste in every Dallas Stars mouth. But I could feel better, but I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, it was a tough game against Vegas. It always is a tough game. I think like 7 of the last 8 matchups now have ended in the score of 3-2 against the Golden Knights. Like, that's just kind of what it is. Obviously, the last 2 haven't ended in that score, but tough game last night. They scored 20 seconds into the game, 10 seconds into the game, and then it got called back for offsides, which was good. And then scored maybe 15, 20 seconds after that to make it 1-0. So it was off to a hot start. Maverick Bork gets a goal. Top Gun, Maverick. He got a goal, a nice one right through the 5-hole. So good to see him get one into the net over the last week or so. He's been struggling to get it in the net, but he's got good looks. He's gotten great chances. So, but yeah, the whole storyline leads to the third period. Down a goal. Miro Heiskanen's coming up the ice. Rupe Hintz does put a stick in Mark Stone's area. He doesn't get his skate. He gets the top of the boot. And if you're unable to continue skating after a tap on the top of your boot, you probably aren't an NHL player. Craig Ludwig literally said it on DLLS. I've just been listening to it before we started recording this. He said, if that's your motion, you're not an NHL player. Like, you just don't know how to skate if that is the case. So Mark Stone then lunges, full-on dives into Miro Heiskanen's knee. It buckles. He goes down immediately in pain. Play stops. Obviously, it's a penalty. And Rupe Hintz gets after Mark Stone. He jumped right into him, launched into him to defend his teammate, his Finnish brother. And yeah, we lose Miro Heiskanen. We don't know for how long yet. It's Wednesday, January 29th when we're recording this, so we'll know more tomorrow on Thursday when they do an MRI and all the other tests on his knee. We're hoping for the best, but what did you think about the play? Obviously, Mark Stone is not the most liked person in Dallas. He's probably the most hated person in Dallas, above Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, all the people. What did you think about the play?
Watching it live, I was extremely pissed. Nope, I haven't seen anybody defend whether it was dirty or not. It is what it is, but it was an incredibly bad decision by Mark Stone to even be there. Now, as the aftermath goes, we're trying to decide, like, did he have time to move? He wasn't. It's not like he was at top speed here. Like, he was on both skates. And I loved how you said it. You said he was tapped, not tripped. If he was tripped, the ref would have called a tripping play. Did they call it tripping play?
They did on Mark Stone, not on Rupe Hintz.
Exactly. So, like, I'm not buying that Mark Stone was tripped. He said that after the game. I don't buy it. When I watch it in slow motion, Mark's right shoulder goes directly into Miro's left knee. There was enough distance to where some other body part could have made first contact, and it was his right. To me, it was dirty. I texted my brother, who is a Stars fan now. He doesn't really know the lay of the land in the league, so he doesn't know Mark Stone's reputation. I just asked him point blank, was this a dirty play? And he goes, it's what it looked like to me. And it looked like a dirty play because it was a dirty play. And I would have said that if Miro would have remained in the game. Like, it looked bad. It was bad. there's no. I watched the DLS stuff too. They were a lot less. They were more calm than I was about it. You notice none of the Vegas players when it happened, they didn't chirp back. It was more, all right, everybody, calm down, calm down. Let's let cooler heads prevail here because they know that was not a good play.
It wasn't a hockey play. It
Exactly.
wasn't. It wasn't an athletic feat in any way, shape, or form. It was a blatant embellishment. They call that for penalties now in the NHL. You can get a penalty for embellishing a play. That is what I saw. I saw embellishment. Sure, he probably did get a little tangled up. His skate lifted in a weird way after the stick touched him, but it was after the skate was still stable. The skate was stable, and then the stick is gone, and now the skate is not stable because he's on his toe. Like he lunged. It was a Robert Tiffin who writes for his own blog called Stars Thoughts. He's an awesome guy. You need to subscribe to his Substack when it comes out this week or next week, whenever he's launching it, to help support him get through the rest of the season and hopefully beyond that. He's a great reporter and everything, but he pulled out the NHL rulebook and was like, "This is a blatant clipping call, which is a 5-minute major and a game misconduct." And they didn't call it that way. They called tripping on the ice instead of calling it clipping, going to review, and then calling it a 2-minute trip. If they wanted to go that way, that's what probably should have happened because it was not a hockey play. And that's the most frustrating part with this play is because it's the most hated guy in Dallas. One. Two, it may not have been dirty, but it was reckless. It was reckless endangerment,
Thank you.
essentially,
I,
of
I could not have said it better.
it's just it was stupid. It was a bad, stupid play by Mark Stone, and he hasn't acknowledged it that way. He said he got tripped, and that's why he fell that way. The problem is his right skate is still stable on the ice. His left skate was stable on the ice until he decided to tilt it towards his toe. I've seen hockey players do the most incredibly weird and wonky things on the ice this season. Like just being able to skate the way they do is an incredible athletic feat in their own way. Because skating is not an easy thing, and skating the way that they do is it's the whole 10,000 hour rule. Like if you have 10,000 hours of something, you're going to be an expert at it. They're experts at skating on the ice with a stick in their hand, with all the pads and equipment and everything on them. He should have been able to either fall to his knees and get right back up if he got tripped, or not lunged forward and dove directly into Miro Heiskanen's knee. He had those two options. Obviously, it's a bang bang play. It happens really fast, but he made the conscious decision to lunge forward and not to get out of the way or not hurt him. Essentially, he lunged directly into the knee, and that's why Dallas Stars fans are in an uprising against Vegas right now. It's been, and I'm not saying that Vegas is the only dirty team in the NHL. They play really hard and they hit people. And in this day and age of hockey, it's different than a lot of other teams play. But we have Jamie Benn on our team. He cross-checked Mark Stone in the face as he was falling down in the playoffs, in the Western Conference Finals, no less. Got a 2-game sussy and thrown from the game. Mark Stone's not going to get a suspension. He's probably not going to get a fine. And that's one of my bigger issues with what the referees were doing last night. And the commentators last night on ESPN, we didn't have Victory Plus. That was a whole other thing I was frustrated about, is not having Victory Plus for that play. ESPN was like, "Oh, that's a dirty play," essentially. And then they look at the replay and they're like, "All right, I mean, there was a stick, but still not great." Good call by ESPN, but they love Vegas. ESPN loves Vegas. The whole game is Vegas, Vegas, Vegas. Jack Eichel this, Jack Eichel that. Mark Stone's a great player. He doesn't. And then they said, Mark Stone does not have a reputation in the NHL. And that's when I really started to lose it because I'm already pissed. We just lost arguably our best player for however long to a knee injury. And then they're saying that Mark Stone doesn't have a reputation. He does. He absolutely does. Across the league.
Yeah, I mean, and I even try to when I look back at it, I try to take his reputation out. And
Yes.
when I do, it's still we can have discussions about it. You can say I'm wrong here, but when I watch the replay, the stick touching his leg, there's a latency from the time the stick touch from Rupe to Mark Stone leaving his feet. That's where I have an issue. If it was direct 1-to-1, Rupe's stick touches his leg, he falls, I would be more sensitive towards the issue. But there is 2 or 3 frames worth of Mark Stone being on both feet, leaving both feet, and going right into Miro's knee. And, reputation bad, reputation good, that's just not a good play. And for the NHL to do nothing about it is a little crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1:41 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we haven't heard anything from NHL player
Correct.
relations or anything right now. So it doesn't look like anything's going to happen or come from it. So that sucks. It sucks that Miro's going to be gone for however long. It does kind of come at a convenient time. We got about a week or so left until Four Nations tournament and the break. And then you got another week after that to end of February. So it's not he missed 3 weeks last season. It was tough, obviously losing your top defenseman, especially when you didn't have Brandon Tanev yet or Chris Tanev yet. And yeah, it's a tough thing to happen, but it doesn't come at a more ideal time. If you were going to have an injury to your best player, like this is the most ideal time to have it because Four Nations.
Yeah, I can agree with you on that.
And it sucks, but enough about Mark Stone. I'm tired of talking about him. I've watched the replay 50 to 100 times over last night and this morning. Still frustrated, but I watched it in slow mo. I watched all the angles, and that's the conclusion that I've come to. I'm not a hockey player. I'm not on the ice, so I can't really speak for him. But Mark Stone's sitting on the bench with the iPad, looking at the play, and then laughing and smiling on the bench, like, "Oh yeah, I got tripped."
No, you
It wasn't
didn't.
a
No,
hockey.
you didn't.
It wasn't a hockey play. Sure, if you did get tripped, you don't fall like that.
No, you don't.
That was a lunge. It was a lunge. It was a full body lunge. Is what
Like,
it
you mean
was.
it? I mean, we're gonna stop talking about it. But you mean to tell me you get tripped and both feet go underneath you at the same time? Like, come on, man.
Yeah,
Like,
you look like the cornerback that's chasing the wide receiver all the way to the end zone and 5 yards behind, and you just do a full body just Superman dive at him, essentially, right
what
at
are we?
his knee. No. Enough about Mark Stone. Let's talk about the star of the game, Wyatt Johnston. We've been waiting for a Supernova Wyatt Johnston game all season long. It's his second career hat trick. Not a big deal. Got a 5-on-5 goal, a shorty, and the overtime winner. Wyatt Johnston looked stellar, and I think a big part of that was putting the real top line together again for the first time since, I don't know, November, December. They put Wyatt, Rupe, and Robo all on a line together. That's the top line that we thought we were going to have coming into the season. They put it together, and Rupe Hentz gets three helpers on Wyatt Johnston's 3 goals. So what do you think about Wyatt? What do you think about that line getting back together?
Um, this game started off crazy, like you said, just so much going on. It felt like the Stars were playing a little scared, and I could see why. Because Vegas, it felt like they had 10 guys on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
But when this line got clicking, like there was I was frustrated with the puck handling all night, but when this line was on the ice, they knew where each other were going to be, and you saw a smoothness that we've kind of missed of around Wyatt Johnston, right? Um, the shorthanded one was the most impressive goal to me. It was I wasn't even looking, and I kind of heard the commentator kind of get up, and then I realized, damn, that's some really good stick work by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But just to constantly see the guys in the assist to Wyatt Johnston, it really excites me about um, the chemistry those guys have going forward, and I think it can translate over on a power play as well.
Yeah, and I thought Rupe has been playing really well with Sam Steele and Logan Stankoven over the last week since he's come back from injury, and they had started to build some chemistry. That line was looking a lot more dangerous with the speed of Hintz and Sam Steele just being a grinder and being all over the place, and Stank just being who Stank is. He's a pesk. He's the Energizer Bunny. He never runs out of energy. He's always fast. He's always around the puck. That line was always interesting to me, and I was like, I don't hate this line. If you're going to keep Daddy on the top line with Wyatt and Robo, that line's been pretty good too. But getting the big guys all together just kind of flipped the game on its head. And that, like you said, that stick handling from Wyatt, and then just the give and go from Rupe to Wyatt to go top left from the right side of the ice, from the right circle. And it was just an impressive game from those 3 guys. Just I know Robo didn't have a point last night, but he's on the ice. He's a threat at any point in the offensive zone. So Vegas has to pay attention to him. They have to pay attention to Rupe. They have to pay attention to Wyatt Johnston. He scored 30 goals last year. Or how many ever? 33 goals last year. As a 20-year-old, he's 21, and he kind of started the season off slow. And I think he was in the same boat with Robo, saying that he was thinking about Four Nations and trying to make the roster and all that kind of stuff. And then since the rosters have come out, they've both been really good. I think Wyatt's up to what, 13, 14 goals, 15 goals this season now. Obviously with
Really?
I think so. Like, I think he's been really good since December, just like Robo. And so that Four Nations effect, like stressing about that affected their game play on the ice for the Dallas Stars and not for the Americans and the Canadians. So getting him going, getting Robo's back. Robo's just back now, and now it looks like Rope's back. So, yeah, that line looked really good, and I'd be surprised on Friday when we play Vancouver if that line is not still together. I think that line just has good chemistry, and they were focused on the wrong things at the wrong time to start the season, and now it's looking like they've got a feel for each other, and hopefully that translates to the power play, because we didn't have a good power play last night against Vegas. You had that 4-minute power play where you get hardly anything. I rewatched it this morning just to get through it, and wasn't great, but Wyatt, I mean, that overtime goal was all Rupe, basically, and Wyatt. Just going down the ice, back and forth, and then the late pass from Rupe, just a wide open net. All he had to do was just tap it in. And Wyatt said on the postgame with ESPN, is just like a lot of excitement and nerves when that wet net is wide open. Like, you got to just make sure it goes in the net. He only had to go a foot, but gets it done, gets a win in Vegas. You can't ask for too much more out of the injury that happened in this game. You win the series against Vegas. They're a playoff rival. They're a regular season rival, and winning that series feels really good. And now you've got some bulletin board material if you end up meeting them in the playoffs. Like Mark Stone, there's a target on his head. Matt Dumba, go get after him. Liam Bichel, go get after him. Like, big hitters. Make sure Mark Stone feels what he did back in January if you meet him in March, April, May, or June. So, I don't know. Beating Vegas always feels good, especially when they do it in their own barn.
Yeah, and before we leave this game, special shout out to Otter. He made an unreal save to really catapult that game winner.
Yeah, overtime was 20 seconds if you didn't
Yeah,
watch the game last night. 20.
they win the face. Vegas wins the face off, gets the puck, and I thought this is going to be the game ender, and Otter just somehow keeps it from going to the back of the net. We flip around, bing bang boom, tic tac toe, ping pong. Thank you for coming. We'll take our 2 points. Yeah, I just want to special shout out to Otter because he faced a lot of heat to start that game.
Yeah, they were just Vegas was angry that they lost on Friday. Even on a second night of a back-to-back, they felt like they should deserve to win that game. I thought Dallas played one of their better games of the season. They had 2 power play goals and then another one late there in the third period with 4 or 5 minutes left on Friday. You were in the building for that. You and Mark were there filming some content. Got to go see the boys beat Vegas at home, and then that overtime. You lose the face-off right off the bat. It's advantage Vegas. It's probably like if you look at the ESPN meter of percentage to win at that moment in time, it had to have been 75, 80% Vegas just because they have the puck to start overtime. Shea Theodore caught the defense flat-footed and skated right past everybody through the neutral zone, and Otter has a huge save. Lindell gets the puck and advances it immediately up to Wyatt. Wyatt to Rupe to Wyatt, wide open net. There's a thing of beauty, and it was something that I think I've been missing from the Stars this year outside of the Seguin line when Seguin was healthy. It's just snapping the puck around and feeling so comfortable with exactly where everybody is. Every pass is so clean and crispy and everything. We saw a lot of that from Rupe and Wyatt last night. So if we can get one of those lines going again, it's going to be tough to beat the Stars.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a tough game. It's a tough game.
But speaking back on Friday, I took Mark up there, and this was, one of my Apollo Brethren's first ever NHL game. And just shout out to everybody that we talked to, everybody that we met. It was so much fun being there in person. It's the first time I got to see Logan Stankoven skate in person, and it's a lot different than watching him on the broadcast. That dude can fly around. I
Yep.
do not want to trade him. I need Stank in a Dallas Star sweater for as long as possible. Liam Bishop can lay the wood. Also, I was open to hearing if there was a big fish out there. You know, I was open to hearing his name being thrown out there, but no, no, he's a star. No more sending him to Texas. Like Liam Bishop, especially with the injury, we're going to need him. But just everybody in Dallas, man, you know, the mission up there was to just get a feel for how would Stars fans react to an in-state rival. And I was expecting, like, you know, we don't like the Astros. We definitely don't like the Rockets right now. But everybody was kind of, you know, if it helps grow hockey in Texas, like, please. They laughed at us when we got an expansion team, when we got the Stars from Minnesota, and we're not laughing anymore. We're a real hockey market, and we think if you guys get a team, we would love it. And I had so much fun meeting people. A lot of people said that they'll follow on with us, Clean Sheet of Ice. So that was really fun. But then also, it was one of my I think it was our best game of the year, if I'm
Yep.
being honest. So much back and forth. Jack Eichel is unreal. I don't like him, but I respect him. And Jake Ottinger made the best save I've seen. Well, the second best save I've seen this
It was
season.
the next day that the
Yeah.
best save happens. It's an empty net, and the goalie sprints back and does the full dive for the catch. Yeah, I don't remember who it was. It was Washington, maybe, or Ottawa. I can't remember who it was. But yeah, it
Yeah.
was an unreal save from him. But Otter, that glove save from, was it Hurdle or Barbashev? I can't remember who it was, but just
I
a
think
wide open net. Otter's laying on the ground and just sticks that glove up and gets it. That was an unreal save on Friday night.
and where me and Mark were seated, to our right was like the press row, and to their left was like the owner's box where Jim Nill and like all the guys
Mm-hmm.
watch the games from. And when they showed the replay on the big screen, I've never met Jim Nill, but he was very animated when they showed that save. He was pumped. That crowd was electric. Every time we scored, Mark lost his mind. I lost my voice. It was a fun time. And hey, me and Stone get together. The Stars score on the power play, so we might need to make some more. I might need to make some more trips up there if
I,
if they're gonna play like this.
I think you do. And I think they said it on the broadcast last night that the Stars have like the 8th best power play on the road in the league, but then like the 26th or 27th best at home, which doesn't make any sense. You would think they'd be better at home. It's the whole Houston Astros syndrome that we have. Like winning a World Series game at home has just been impossible for a while now. And it is what it is this season. But for the first time in 14 games, the Stars win a game coming back down in the scoring after the second period. They were 0-13 to start the season if they were down in the second at the end of the second period, heading into the third, and they finally got a comeback win, and it felt amazing. And especially losing Miro for the game, like if they laid down and they lost that game 4-2, then I can't blame the guys. Like you just lost one of your most important players, your best defenseman, all that kind of stuff. Like if you laid down that game, then it is what it is. I'm not gonna just hang my hat and just be like, this sucks. Like I'm gonna keep my chin high if you lose that game. But the boys did it. The boys came back, won that game. 2 games against Vegas in a week, less than a week, and you get 2 wins, one on the road, one at home, and you had a back-to-back in there with St. Louis, and you stole a game there. Bennington was really good, but you got 2 early goals, and Casey DeSmith stood on his head for the rest of the time, and it was a sloppy game, but you're playing a sloppier team, so it worked out for them. So 3-game winning streak, and we're heading back to Dallas Friday night. We'll be in Vancouver against Vancouver. Hopefully, we can get another one at home at American Airlines Center. I think we got that one, and then Sunday night I think is the last game before the Four Nations break before they go on the road. So before Four Nations, so we'll see what happens there. Obviously, the trade deadline is going to be different now with Miro Heiskanen's injury. We don't know the extent of it. If it's a month, if it's 2 months, they may not have to go get a defenseman. They might just roll with Nils Lundqvist or Brendan Smith. Brendan Smith, by the way, we got to give him a shout out.
Yeah,
Playing defense and healthy scratch for a majority of the year. He played 13 games, 10 games before moving to the forward line. And they put him on the forward line against Vegas on Friday night and the following 2 games after that. He brought a physicality and a defensive mind that has worked. he's really good on the boards. He's really good at defending in the offensive zone. Like if they get the puck, he's able to kind of jar the puck loose or get the puck back. He's put up some decent shots too. I've been very impressed with Brendan Smith at forward.
When we heard about it, like we were together
Mm-hmm.
and like you were the one that told me, and I was like, okay.
It didn't make sense at the time.
Uh who am I to question Peter DeBoer because he's been great, but like I didn't expect it to work out the way it did that game. And if this could be a game changer if he continues to look more and more comfortable in whatever role they put him in, because he was kind of a non-factor before Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, he's been fine on the defensive end. He's on the third pairing. He doesn't play more than 12 to 15 minutes a game. Like, it's kind of his max. It's around 12, 13 minutes a game probably. And he's been fine. He hits people. I like to see when the defensemen hit people. Dumba hasn't done that a lot this season. That's kind of what we got him for, and he hasn't done it. But Lyubushkin's been doing it. Now you got Bischel up, who's been hitting people. So with Mason Marchment coming back very soon, I would assume it's probably going to be after Four Nations break, I would assume is what's going to happen. But if you get him back, then Brendan Smith can go back to your last pairing on defense, and you can kind of coast by until Miro Heiskanen comes back is my idea. If Mush comes back and he's pretty healthy and he's got his conditioning and all that kind of stuff. So then you wouldn't have to worry about that fourth line as much because you get Sam Steele and all those guys back together, and it looks a little bit more healthy without Miro. And then when Miro comes back, then Brendan Smith can kind of sub in at forward on the fourth line if there's an injury, or he can be that third D pairing. So you don't have to play Lundqvist because it appears that DeBoer is done with Nils Lundqvist. And it kind of sucks because the kid is good. He's been a lot better this year. It's not up to DeBoer standards, I guess.
Yeah. There's a post Four Nations. We're going to need some questions answered by management, by the current players on our team. Like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's going to be a trade, and just depending on what Miro's injury ends up looking like, then I think that's what's going to determine what the trade is. Because there's not a whole lot of defensemen out there that are UFAs at the end of this season or UFAs at the end of next season, which is what DLLS and Robert Tiffin and all these guys have been talking about. It's like, yeah, they're going to get someone with either this season or next season. They're UFA after that. So there's not a ton out there, and there's not a ton that people would be just like willing to part ways with. Because there's still a lot of people, or a lot of teams still in the race for wild card spots and all that kind of stuff. And that's the other tough part. So
yeah,
waiting till Four Nations is the smart move. Jim Nill has won GM of the year 2 years in a row. There's a reason for that. He's made the right moves at the right time over the last 2 seasons. So let's count on him doing it for a third season.
I know we have our first rounder next year, but I want to say we have all of our.
I think we have all of our first rounders now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have a second or a third rounder out there that we don't have this season. But other than that, I think we have all of our first rounders. So if you wanted to swing bigger and get someone with 2+ years of term, like this season and 2 years after that, I think you could do it with the first round pick. So we'll just have to wait and see what they happen at the deadline. And speaking of the deadline, kind of moved up over the last week. Friday night, was it Friday night? We were playing against Vegas, and all of a sudden everything broke like first, second period.
It was like 2 minutes left in the first period.
Yeah, it was kind of insane. So Elliot Friedman and a bunch of other reporters are saying Taylor Hall going to Carolina. I'm like, that's a good swing. Like, get a little bit more offensive depth on the Canes. And I love the Canes. My buddy's a big Canes fan, and so I've always kind of adopted them as not a second team, but I pay attention to them more than I pay attention to more the other NHL teams, essentially. And I love the Canes. Love them. And they didn't just get Taylor Hall. No. They got Mikko Rantanen from the Colorado Avalanche because apparently contract extension talks had stalled and they weren't going to be able to reach a deal. So Mikko Rantanen goes to Carolina. Taylor Hall goes to Carolina. Drury and Nietzsche's go from Carolina to Colorado, and Chicago gets a third round pick and retains half of Mikko Rantanen's or $4 million of Rantanen's salary. Like, an absurd amount of salary to take for a guy that I think he's making like 6.5 this season or something like that. So they took like 2/3 of his salary. They get Taylor Hall, they get Rantanen, and then Colorado's looked really good with Nietzsche. He's been really good. I think he has 4 points in 3 games for them right now. he fit in pretty seamlessly. He's under contract for next season. He got a 2-year deal, I think, this past offseason as a bridge deal. So, yeah, trades, they're happening.
Well, what was crazy was like, I'm in the middle of a great game. Like
Yeah.
Dallas is playing ping pong with Vegas. They're going back and forth, goal for goal. Jack Eichel is Jack Eichel, right?
And
And
Robo's got 2 goals.
yeah, like it was crazy. And what was wild was the timing was so weird because all of the big media guys were saying like they weren't putting out the full trade because they didn't know it yet. They just knew the
Taylor
headline of
Hall.
it. And
Yeah.
we're all of us fans, I don't even know, just to my left and right, like, well, what's the return? What's the return? I'm like, I don't know yet. We
No
that's
idea.
and so then everyone's like, is Colorado gonna get Crosby? And that was my initial thought. And I'm like, we could get that trade any minute. And that's another bombshell after a bombshell. We still don't have it. I don't know. I have no idea if that's going to happen or not. But yeah, you're right. Like they're definitely buying. Like Natchez was already having a good year.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
He was a
he's
problem against Dallas last week when we watched him on Monday.
yeah. He fit right in. But just the idea, like the production that Rantanen has given Colorado, and to just kind of walk away from that was wild, not knowing the return. And then I want to shout out Chicago. Like they're eating a lot of Rantanen's salary, but they're offloading Hall. I,
Yeah.
I I think they gained back 1 million in cap and their own third round pick.
Hmm.
So Hall for Chicago, like they brought in Hall for one reason, and that's because to mentor Bedard, one former first round pick to another first overall pick, and I think he kind of served his purpose. But to see a 3-team deal like that, to see a creative deal like that, I hope other GMs like kind of follow suit because that it just makes it more fun. Like I'm, if I'm in Carolina's division, I was already scared of them. Now you got Mikko Rantanen, they're all in. Colorado, it was like a weird move, and it's probably going to still not work out too bad if their intention was to not pay Mikko Rantanen what he deserves. We don't know. Like there are weird reports out there right now saying that Rantanen was caught off guard. They didn't even talk to McKinnon about it. Like everything about it was just kind of move and move fast. And this is as big of a bombshell in the NHL world that you will get. Um, it was nuts, man. Like it
Yeah.
took 2 days for me to comprehend what happened.
And Mikko Rantanen literally talked to a Finnish newspaper right after the trade happened. And he was like, I was willing to take way less than market value. And then Colorado's coming out saying that we offered 11.7, which he's a winger. He's not a center. So that market is different because Draisaitl is kind of the same level that Rantanen was at because he's top 5 in points over the last 5 seasons with Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Leon Draisaitl, and Rantanen. I think he's top 4 or 5 in both goals and assists over the last 5 seasons. He
And
is that caliber player, but he's not a center. So I think looking at Draisaitl's contract, you couldn't necessarily go off of that because a center does bring a lot more than just a winger does. But Rantanen, with that point level production, a cup win, he's an alternate captain. Like, it's just a jarring trade, especially if Rantanen's like, dude, I was asking for like 9.6, and they didn't do that, even though they have Makar coming up, but they have a full another season of Kale Makar on his bridge deal right now. Like, that money's only going up in the salary cap, and I think that's the one thing with the NHL that's not drawing in viewers is blockbuster trades, and something crazy like this happening is because of the hard salary cap. Like you have to be under the salary cap or right at it in the NHL. There's no luxury tax. You can't go over it. I don't really know like what happens if you do go over it. Like I think you just can't play games until like you get under the salary cap or you can't play those players. So yeah, I think that's something that's missing, and maybe that comes up in the CBA that we get a luxury tax or the salary cap just jumps 20 million. I think that would be, I like the hard cap. I think it makes teams more creative. I think it makes teams more cohesive, and there's more parity, I believe, in the NHL than there is in any other league other than maybe baseball, just because baseball's wonky. Like a team can just get hot like the Nationals did or whatever. Like that can just happen in baseball, and it happens in hockey too, but it's because they have to stay together based on salary cap. But now MLB salary cap doesn't even exist, and they have luxury tax. Doesn't matter if you're the Dodgers, if you have infinite money. I want to see more of that. I want to see more crazy things like this happening. And obviously, we thought Crosby was going to get dealt within the next 48 hours. According to Kevin Weeks, like it's only ramping up over the next 48 hours. And he tweeted a picture of the Pittsburgh skyline and their bridge and everything. And we were like, oh shit, it's actually going to happen. Colorado is going to get Crosby because that just makes sense. They love Nathan McKinney and Crosby are their buddies, and Nathan, that's his mentor in the offseason, and who he trains with and all that kind of stuff. It would make so much sense if that's what's happening, but I don't think that's what's happening anymore. I think Pittsburgh's just going to offload Carlson and retain a bunch of salary, and maybe it's Malkin, maybe it's, I don't know who else that they really have to trade other than that, but Letang. But like, I don't know. Something's going to happen in Pittsburgh. I just don't know what it is yet. But yeah, that was a wild trade to start trade season here in January when the deadline's first week of March. So it's a hot start.
Yeah, and for Carolina, dude, if you get playoff Rantanen, that's so scary. And I didn't think about this until now, but I don't know, Colorado's books per se. And we also, none of it, well, I think the owners know what the cap will be, but fans don't know, players don't know.
Yeah, they definitely know within probably $1.5 million of what it's going to be.
It would be a weird world if Colorado brings Rantanen back next offseason.
I mean, it's definitely happened. Like it in the NBA, I believe. Like players get traded midseason and then come back and sign the big deal with the team, and they get all these trade pieces, and then just bring the star back. Like it's definitely happened before, and I'm not counting out Colorado, but it seems like the relationship might be potentially broken, if not just cracking right now between Colorado and Rantanen, just getting blindsided by a trade. He's saying that he's willing to take well below market value. And if that's for a winger, then you're really looking at $9 million, $9.5 million for that guy with the cap going up. So if he was willing to take that and you just were like, I don't think so, then I don't know if he comes back, and then he just tries to go get money elsewhere. Like if he goes to Florida or Tampa or stays in Carolina, because Carolina is going to be a cup contender for a few years to come. Like they've got their team. They're all pretty young. I mean, Brett Burns is kind of on his last legs, but they've got enough there. If they had a stud goaltender, like a backup goaltender even, that just elevates their level of play for that team. And if you can keep Rantanen in the offseason, that team's scary for 5+ years after that. You got Jarvis, Aho, all those guys locked up already. Gross.
Yeah, I love the move for Carolina.
Yeah, great move for them. Great move for the trade deadline. Great move for the NHL. Just being in the news on a Friday night when other sports are being played. And obviously Vegas and Stars were on ESPN with a great game. Eichel has 2 goals. Robo has 2 goals. Like 2 American studs going at it in the most hated rivalry in the NHL right now. Hell of a night for the NHL.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it was so much fun. And I can't wait to go. I told you, I can't wait to go back. The building was buzzing before the game. The building was buzzing during and after. I'm 3 straight wins, collecting points at a rate that I felt this team could. And we finish out strong before 4 Nations. I feel good about the players that are on the roster.
Yeah, we got a West Coast road trip after this weekend, and then it's 4 Nations for a couple weeks there, and then at the end of February we'll be back, and I think there's like a 26-day lull between home games in February, which is going to suck. I'm going to miss. Like I'm going to have like 2 home games, maybe 1 home game in February that I get to go to, and not looking forward to that. But we're almost to 4 Nations. We'll be back next week. Talk about the West Coast road trip, and then after that we'll talk about 4 Nations for a couple weeks, and we'll preview and recap games and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll be back talking trades and Dallas Stars hockey after that. So February, it's coming up. Trade deadline, it's coming up. But this has been Clean Sheet of Ice, the Texas Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Apollo Media. And shout out to Prize Picks, our sponsor for this episode. It's a daily fantasy app where you hit more or less on every stat, every game, every night, every player. Shout out to Prize Picks. Use code Apollo when you sign up. You get up to $100 match on your first deposit. I'm your host, Stone Strinkman. It's my co-host, Dom Garcia. We'll be back to talk Stars hockey very, very soon on Clean Sheet of Ice, the Texas Hockey Podcast.